Hello, I'm Faith Lewis, Corporate Communications Manager here at SCOR, and today I'm joined by Colin Kearney, our Global Head of Medical Underwriting and Claims and part of our business acceptance team on the SCOR Life and Health side. We're going to talk a little bit about professional athletes and how they're covered, and also a little bit about amateur athletes. So why don't you start by actually giving us a little bit of an overview of what life and health insurance and reinsurance actually entails. What are the lines of business?
Yeah, thanks, Faith, and thanks for the invitation. So life is the main line of business, and within life you have accident cover. Then you have critical illness, which is mainly payment of a lump sum on the event of a serious illness like cancer or heart attack or stroke. And then we have disability, which is the main line of business that we have the important, interesting challenge to underwrite professional sports people and amateur sports people as well. And within disability, you have loss of license, which is payment of a lump sum benefit in the event that a professional sports person loses their license due to a career-ending injury, meaning they can't play anymore. And then we also have medical expenses, which is a line of business, and that would be paying medical bills, etc., or daily reimbursement of expenses. Long-term care is another line of business, which isn't really adapted to professional sports people. So there are the main lines of business that we see. Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the risks that professional athletes are facing and how that compares maybe to the average person or someone who just does sports, as a hobby?
So professional sports people, obviously they're high intensity in terms of their training. They could be prone more to injury because of the frequency of their training and professional competitions, and then depending on the physical activity involved in the sport, which is a common sense approach, like rugby players have a higher degree of concussion injuries, of musculoskeletal injuries because of the very, very aggressive physical contact. Then people who perform gymnastics, for example, they tend to have injuries linked to a cruciate ligament, like knee problems, back problems because of flexibility and the stretching of back, and then ankle injuries, things like that when they fall because of they're doing spectacular jumps, etc. So you have these types of injuries, and then other sports, even amateur sports like scuba diving, you've got that risk of decompression and the bends, as it's called, which could lead to a stroke if not treated properly, etc. SOLM is our underwriting manual, which then takes into account all the risk factors, and we provide evidence-based decisions depending, again, whether it's a professional athlete, an amateur athlete, and then if it's an amateur athlete, what's the frequency, and then we apply the appropriate decision linked to the risk that brings.
So not only are you drilling down to the very specific risks each of these individuals is facing based on their situation, but it's also not just based on how you feel as an underwriter. It's very organized, categorized, and systematic.
Yeah. And it's the same for every single sport. Mm-hmm. It depends on the risk that sport brings. And then professional sports, again, can be more positive because the mortality, even for people who do sports in amateur, it's showing that the more fit you are in terms of the more sport you do, then the better mortality outcome that you can have.
So if we pivot a little bit and we look at the different types of coverage that you touched on at the beginning, can you tell us a little bit about how that works for professional athletes?
Yeah, so professional athletes in terms of occupational cover, again, we cover income protection for many sports, mainly in our European business. And we cover, again, loss of license. We cover daily reimbursement expenses, mainly in the French market. We cover accidental death, and that would be per team or per individual. But in terms of the occupation as well, again, depending on the type of sport that's performed, the underwriting decision could be different. It could be standard rates, or it could be maybe a slight rating. Mostly for life cover, we always provide standard rates for the majority of sports. For disability, we might have to adjust in certain, depending as well on if there was pre-existing injuries and they're likely to reoccur, then an exclusion could be applied to that pre-existing injury.
Sure, absolutely. So then let's talk a little bit about after the career. They've had this spectacular, very successful athletic career. Let's say there's no injuries, they retire, everything's good. Where do professional athletes find themselves at that point?
Well, they keep their contract, their insurance contract, especially like a lot of athletes, professional, amateur, take out mortgage protection cover where they continue to pay their loan and they need covered protection. So that continues, or even maybe the loss of license cover would finish because they finished their career, so the loss of license cover would finish age 34, 35. But life cover can continue throughout the term and throughout their lives, depending on the type of contract they take. Now, there are certain changes in risks, maybe post-career. Some professional athletes come down from a big high, and some kind of lose identity and try and find their way into a new career, and they find it difficult in integrating. There's some risk of depression in some athletes with that, and we've seen that through studies. But overall, the terms don't change when they finish their career.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for all those insights, Colin. It was a really interesting conversation. It was great to have you here today.
Thanks, Faith. Thank you.